Welcome to the Spirit of Mayberry, brought to you by Research Chief Spirit Walker from an undisclosed location deep within the bowels of the Andy Griffith Show Research Laboratory.
Hello and welcome to the Research Laboratories for the Andy Griffith Show. I just wanted to let you know that we do not have sponsors in this fan cast. We do not have sponsors, but what you can do for me is to reach down and hit that subscribe button and the like button, both of them. Hit them both. It'll help me with this podcast. It'll give me a little encouragement. Let me know you're out there watching because I love the Andy Griffith Show, and this is my way of spreading the spirit of Mayberry to you. Today is Monday, October 24th, 2022. On Monday, October 24th, 1960, exactly 62 years ago, the fourth episode of the Andy Griffith Show, Season 1, aired. And it was called Ellie Comes to Town. Ellie Comes to Town, of course, introduced the character of Ellie Walker, played by the lovely Eleanor Donahue, who is a fantastic actress. You may know her from Father Knows Best. She played the oldest daughter, Betty, and she was just marvelous. She was Andy's first love interest on the show, and that was the gist of the show, introducing a new character, introducing Ellie. I titled this fan cast Reality Comes to Town, because today I want to introduce you to the reality of Mayberry. You see, the town of Mayberry was situated on a back lot for TV shows and movies that had been used since 1927. It was an incredible place, but the reality of the back lot was not the reality of the fictional town of Mayberry. In other words, they didn't exactly match. The Andy Griffith Show had to use certain camera tricks and angles and things like that in order to create the illusion of a much bigger town than the 40-acre lot afforded. Um, First of all, just let me tell you that the 40 Acres Backlot, as it was called, was actually only about 28 and a half acres in the area. They called it the 40-acre lot because originally there was a front lot and a back lot. This was the back lot. And so they referred to it as, jokingly, the back 40. Now, as we begin talking about the 40 Acres Backlot, I want to refer you to another website and two excellent places to find videos on YouTube. First of all, you need to go to retroweb.com. On retroweb.com, you will see all of the pictures that you could possibly want to see about the 40 Acres Backlot. It's a great website. It's very detailed, as you can see on the website. You can see the RKO years. You can see the early years of the Desilu studio. You can see the final years of the backlot as they began to dismantle it. Now, there are some videos as well that I want you to look at. Let me pull them up here on my screen. The first one I want to recommend is the Andy Griffith Show filming locations, Finding Town in Mayberry, former studio backlot tour video on the Daily Woo. Adam the Woo is a YouTuber who goes all over the country and shoots video of interesting places. And he went in search of all the places you can find that have to do with the Andy Griffith Show. Here on the screen grab that I grabbed of his video, you can see his route that he's about to take from Culver City there in the south up to Upper Franklin Canyon there in the north. You can see the driving route that he's taking to get there. You can see also a faint line of where he had been to the Desilu Kahanga Studios. I've prepared a little bit of a map. I went to Google Maps and I prepared this map for you here. This map shows you the difference in the difference in the distance between these three filming sites. The Andy Griffith Show was primarily filmed in these three places. The outdoor scenes, of course, down on the bottom of the screen at the town of Mayberry. But the outdoor scenes of the fishing scenes, when they're in the boat and they're out in the lake fishing, most of those were filmed at Upper Franklin Canyon Reservoir, which you see there with the yellow star. To the right, you see a red star. That's Desilu Kahanga Studios in Hollywood. That's where all the interior shots, or most of the interior shots, there are a few exceptions, but most of the interior shots were shot at Desilu Kahanga. Another video that I want to, a videographer on YouTube that I want to point you to is Landom C. Landom C Goes There is the name of the channel. And this is one of his videos here. How and where was the Andy Griffith Show filmed? An in-depth look at the process. The process of filming and the locations are also covered in this. But you can see that I pulled up here a picture of a call sheet. And the call sheet lists the actors involved with that day shooting. This day right here is March 9th, 1964. The episode is The Rumor. Remember when Barney thought that Andy and Helen were going to get married because he saw them kissing in the jewelry store, and he starts to rumor that they're going to get married, and they throw a big party for Andy. So that is this particular episode that we're looking at here. Let's take a little closer look at the call sheet. So up at the top where the red arrow is, you can see the word call sheet. You can see the date on the left, the series on the right, the producer, director, assistant director. Below the rumor, you can see the set on the left-hand column. First scene there that they're going to shoot that day is the exterior of Main Street, and it's a montage. Then they'll shoot the exterior of Town Street, and that's a montage. And then they'll shoot the exterior of the market montage, exterior of the barbershop and street, and the exterior of the street near the jewelry store, and the exterior of the street near the jewelry store, and then the exterior of the residential street, and then the exterior of Andy's house. Now, if you follow along to the right, you'll see a column that has a D in front of it, and then SCS. That's the scene or scenes that they will be shooting from the page numbers in the actual script. So they'll be shooting, the first one is the exterior of Main Street montage is going to be shot during the day. That's what the D stands for. It's a day scene, and it is scene 14. And the cast member required for that scene is cast member number 5. If you look below all of that, you'll see a list on the left-hand column of different actors and actresses. You can see that number 5 is Don Knotts. So Don Knotts will be in that first scene. You'll also see to the right of the number 5, the location, 40A Coaltown Street. The 40A stands for 40 acres, so they're shooting it at the 40 acres lot. Coaltown Street was the name on the call sheet for Main Street in Mayberry. It was called Coaltown Street in reality, but never called that on the show. It was always just Main Street. Then if you follow down, they'll shoot scene 15 next, and that's a daytime scene with Barney Fife, and it's also on Coaltown Street. The next scene down is a day scene, scene 16, with Don Knotts, once again on Coaltown Street. The next one is a day scene, scene 13, with Don Knotts and number 15, who, if we look down the list, is Howard McNear. That's because that's the exterior of the barbershop and the street in front of the barbershop. Once again, on Coaltown Street. The next scene is a daytime scene. It's scenes 3 through 5, or scenes 3 and 5, I should say. They didn't use a comma, they used a dash. And it involves Don Knotts. The exterior near the jewelry store, outside the jewelry store, is a daytime scene. It's scene number 1 in the show. You'll see it first. and it involves only Andy Griffith. This is where Andy walks by and looks in the window and sees Helen Crump inside the jewelry store. Now you won't see Helen Crump in that. They didn't shoot that in that scene. They just shot him walking down the street looking in the window. Then you see the next scene is the residential street. It's a daytime scene, and it involves, um, or it's scene number 10, and it involves three actors. Number 9, who is Betty Lynn. Number 11, who is Anita Corso. And number 19, who is Rhonda Jeter. So this is on the residential street. The street in front of Andy's house was the residential street. We'll go into more detail about that later. Then the next scene is a night scene. It's scene 26, but it was not actually shot at night. It was actually shot during the daytime with a nighttime filter, but they put the night on there so that the camera directions would know to put the filter on. So it involves number 1, Andy. Number 5, Don Knotts. Number 9, Betty Lynn. Number 11, Anita Corso. And number 13, Jim Neighbors, who played Gomer Pyle. And so that is also going to be shot on the residential street. Now, very quickly, we'll just move on down. As we move on down, you can see the bottom of the page. You can see all the list of cameramen, operators, assistants, first assistants. You can see all the different people, and you might see also down the bottom right, it says one welfare worker at 9 o'clock. That's because if you look up where the actors are listed and look at Ronnie Howard, number 3, and follow him across, he plays Opie, and he is to report at 9 o'clock to the 40 Acres School. It was a trailer that they had on the 40 Acres lot where Opie would go to school. And so he did not film that day, but he reported to the lot for school at 9 o'clock. And that's why the social worker also reported at 9 o'clock, because the social worker or the welfare worker that took care of the children on the set was the teacher. And another video that he has is a great video. It's called The Andy Griffith Show Meets American Horror Story. He travels to Upper Franklin Canyon Reservoir, which you see in this screen grab, and he shows you where they did the walk for the opening credits of the Andy Griffith Show. He shows you as he goes down there. The reason it meets the American Horror Story is because when he goes there, he finds part of it blocked off because they're filming an episode of American Horror Story. Another great video he has is the Andy Griffith Show interior filming locations, where he visits Desilu Kahanga and he checks it out and the way it looks today and compares it to the way it looked back in the day. Here you can see the the side entry door to I Love Lucy as it looks today on the right and as it looked back in the day on the left. Another great video that he has is filming locations of the Andy Griffith Show, Hogan's Heroes, and Gomer Pyle. In this screen grab, he is on top of the Baldwin Hills Scenic Overlook, which overlooked the town of Mayberry. And you can see it in the distance in many shots. He's driving down into the area that where the town of Mayberry would be, and that's where the blue arrow is pointing there. Another great video that he has is Andy Griffith Show filming locations in LA and Culver City. In this screen grab, you're looking at the modern day look of what used to be Desilu Kahanga. You can see that is now Red Studios, and this is the entryway. This is the Lillian Way entry. The studio was between two streets. It was between Kohanga and Lillian Way. So the main entrance was on Kohanga, and the rear entrance was the Lillian Way entrance. And if you look back at the call sheet, you'll see that it said they were to leave by the Lillian Gate exit. This is that exit. This is on Lillian Way. The studio on the right behind the little booth there is actually the studios where the Andy Griffith Show was filmed. They're studios 1 and 2. If we could turn around in this picture, if we could turn around, we would be looking almost directly at 830 Lillian Way, which was a house that was used as Thelma Lou's house. It's the house you always see them pull up to. It was used as the Boone's house in season one. Emma Brand even lived there. That was Emma Brand's third house. It was also Thelma Lou's third house, by the way. Just a little Mayberry trivia for you. But this is Lillian Way. A lot of other shows used the lot to film different scenes. When I was a kid, my first superhero was Superman, and Adventures of Superman, starring George Reeves as Superman, used this lot. Here's a picture of George Reeves as Superman taking off from in front of the Mayberry Hotel. That's what's commonly called Opie's Steps in front of the Mayberry Hotel. And this is Superman taking off from there. You can also see the courthouse. Here's Lois Lane getting out of a cab here in front of the Mayberry Courthouse. You'll also see it in a TV show called The Untouchable. And here's one of the Untouchables parked outside a house that should look familiar to you. This house was used as the Rimshaw Haunted House. It is a house you see a lot. It is house facade number 5 on the residential street. And it's right beside Andy's house. If you look to the left of the house, you can see Andy's house right there. My second big hero, superhero, was Batman. And I love the Adam West Batman era. And here is Batman parked across the street from Andy's house. The house right that you can see right behind Batman is house facade number 3. Andy's house was house facade number 4. This is number 3. So it's the little small house right beside Andy's house. And the next house on the left, to the left of it, is house facade number 2. And we'll talk more about these house facades in a little while. But this is Batman on the residential street in Mayberry. Also in that episode, you see Batman and Robin speeding through what would later become Sam Jones's house. And I'll talk a little bit more about Sam Jones's house a little bit later. Here is a picture of a Batman in the middle of Main Street in Mayberry. You can see Walker, what the building that housed Walker's drugstore behind him in the middle of the street. It's a multifaceted building designed to look like different buildings from different camera angles. This street is not called Coal Town Street. Coal Town Street starts after that intersection you see there. This street was called Chicago Street, and it was a street used in movies and TV shows that was more urban. Here's Batman speeding past, again, Mayor Stoner's house, if you will. This was in an episode where Batman and Robin were chasing Falseface, but he also encountered the Black Widow, who was another villain on the show, and the Black Widow used Mayor Stoner's house as her headquarters. And here you can see a henchman. The fence actually folds down and he rides through it, much like Batman does when he goes into the Batcave, into the lair of the Black Widow. There was also another TV show, and I've never actually seen the show, but it was called Land of the Giants. And here you can see the cast from Land of the Giants standing in front of Mayor Stoner's house. You can see Andy's garage there, the reddish colored building, and Andy's house there on the left. Now, they are standing in front of Frank Myers' house from Andy Forecloses. When Frank Myers had the dilapidated house at the beginning of town, supposedly the beginning of town, this is where Frank Myers' house was. Right there to the left of this picture would be Frank Myers' house. Because like I said, they had to create an illusion because the 40 acres lot was really only 28 and a half acres and it was very small and they only had a limited amount of houses they could use. So they had to make them look like they were in different places than they actually were. When that house behind them was the haunted house, it looked like it was out away from everything. But it was actually right beside Andy's house. But by using camera angles and set decoration, they were able to make it look like it wasn't right beside Andy's house. There was another TV show you may have heard of. It was a little show called Star Trek. with Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock and the whole crew of the Enterprise starship. They also filmed an episode on the 40 Acre Lot. Here we see Captain Kirk and crew as they walk past the building, the multifaceted building, which would have been Walker's drugstore. You can also see in this shot the church in the background. Here's a great picture of Captain Kirk and Spock and and, and McCoy, the doctor, as they stand out here in front of the courthouse. Now, in this episode where they go back in time, Kirk meets a lady played by Joan Collins, and they walk down the middle of, or they walk down the sidewalk of Main Street. And here is a picture of them walking past Floyd's barbershop, because a lot of times they didn't redress the set enough for us to tell the difference between one show and the other. This could easily be an episode of the Andy Griffith Show, because here's Kirk, let's say William Shatner and Joan Collins walking past Floyd's barbershop. But it worked the other way too. In this episode, the character that Joan Collins plays worked at the 21st Street Mission. And what they did was they took the theater, the Grand Theater that you see in the Andy Griffith Show. It has the big marquee. It says Grand across the top, and it has the different show times on the marquee. They took that marquee off and redressed the front of that building to look like a mission, the 21st Street Mission. But when they went back and shot the next episode of the Andy Griffith Show, they did not redress the theater. It just disappeared from that point on. Here is a picture of Opie riding his bike down the main street of Mayberry. You can see the market on the right, and in the background, you see 21st Street Mission. So, just a little bit of movie history of how they used the lot and how the lot was fluid. It changed with episodes and it changed with TV shows. Let's look at this 1953 photograph of the lot as it looked in 1953. You can see down in the lower left-hand corner, you see Tarzan's jungle set. That's from Johnny Weissmuller when he was Tarzan with Jane, who sure could swim. They swam in this little man-made lake. This is also the lake where Andy and Barney and Henry Bennett sank in the Jinx episode. You might notice in that episode that when they sink, they're only in waist-high water, because this wasn't a very deep lake, but it was a lake they could actually get in. They couldn't get in the lake at Upper Franklin Canyon because that was a drinking water reservoir for Beverly Hills. And so anytime you see them in the water or pulling a fish out of the water, I should say pulling a fish through the water, not out of the water. They could dip the fish in the water and pull it right back out up in Upper Franklin Canyon. But if they were pulling it through the water, that was shot at this man-made lake. Above it, you see a ridge running. It looks like a ridge. It's actually a culvert. That's Bologna Creek. And it was the southern border. In this picture, we're looking north from the scenic hills overlook, the Baldwin Hills that overlook the town. We're hovering over the Baldwin Hills looking north, and you can see the triangular shape of this 40 acres lot. The Mansion of Terra is in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. That's from Gone with the Wind, which was shot on this lot. And you can see the Atlanta train station shed set, which you can also see in Mayberry. It's at the end of Main Street, opposite end of the courthouse. You can see the Atlanta, it's labeled the Atlanta town set. This is when they destroyed Atlanta in the movie Gone with the Wind. Aunt Pitty Pat's house set is the Rimshaw house, Mayor Stoner's house. That was Aunt Pitty Pat's house in Gone with the Wind, and that's when it was built. You can see a label there for the church. You can see a reform school set and a bombed out town set. That was just past Aunt Pitty Pat's house, but you can see this part of town when Andy and Barney are leading the loaded goat out of town. When they're leading the loaded goat out of town, that's when they walk through that area, going up the hill. So now let's skip ahead a couple of years, 5 years to be exact, or 7 years to be exact, to 1960. This is the lot, and this is only a corner of the lot. This is not the entire lot. This is the southwest corner of the lot because the Baldwin Hills would be on the right of the screen. There's Bologna Creek running down the bottom of the screen there on the right. And now you can see that they have built the set for the real McCoys. You see their barn and you see their house. That barn was used as Frankie Flint's barn. It was used as Jubal Foster's barn. It was used as Rafe Hollister's barn when they came to get him to get a tetanus shot in the county nurse episode. All of those were shot at that barn from the real McCoys. You can see a western town behind that, the Arab village to the right, and the back of the Gone with the Wind railroad depot. Here's a shot of what the barn looked like from the ground in an episode of The Real McCoys. You can see Pepino there chasing Grandpa McCoy on the tractor in front of the barn. And this is what the barn looked like. So you'll recognize it as the Flint barn and as Rafe Hollister's barn, especially. Notice the roof is kind of a hodgepodge of different shades on the roof. So even in black and white, you can tell this roof from any other roof. So on the Andy Griffith Show, where was this located in relation to something you can recognize? Here is a shot of Gomer Pyle at Wally's filling station. This is in the Man in a Hurry episode. He's talking to Malcolm Tucker, and he's looking at Malcolm Tucker and talking to him. And as he is, and we see him face on, we can see the real McCoy's barn in the background, and that little shed that sits there on the right over his left shoulder, that's the chicken coop that Farmer Flint had, that Barney ducked into. Notice the big, huge tree in front of the barn. This is another thing that you can use as a landmark when you're looking at the different sets that were on a 40 acres lot, because they did not take down that tree, even when Gomer went into the Marine Corps. They did not take that tree down. It just transferred to Camp Henderson. So let's skip forward another 3 years. And here we are in 1963, looking at the 40 Acres Backlot. This time we're looking from the northwest corner instead of the southwest corner. We're looking from the northwest corner. There's Baldwin Hills at the top of the screen, and then here's the triangular shape. You can see Bologna Creek, the Tarzan Jungle, just to give you a little orientation. There's the farmhouse and the barn from the Real McCoys in the lower left. And you can also see the Jerusalem set that was built for the greatest story ever told. The back of the Gone with the Wind railroad depot. And then you can see the entire town of Mayberry in that upper left-hand section, the ravaged town just to the east of it. And so this is what it looked like in 1963. Let's skip ahead another 2 years to 1965. The Baldwin Hills is on the left. You can see the culvert containing Bologna Creek. To the left of the screen there, the jungle set on the left-hand side of the creek. And across now from the jungle set is no longer the real McCoy set, but it is Camp Henderson from Gomer Pyle, USMC. And so they had torn down the real McCoy set and built the Gomer Pyle set. You can also see across from it in the northwest corner, Stalag 13. With the painted snow on the roof, and they had fake snow on the ground. That was Stalag 13. I want you to note where it's located because it's going to be important later. You can see a western town and some odd barns here and there. The Gone with the Wind train depot, the village from Turkish Delight on the left. You can see the barracks for a reform school for girls in one movie. And then you can see the main part that we recognize as Mayberry. You can see where it's labeled Town of Mayberry, it's actually pointing to the multifaceted building that contained Walker's Drugstore. Above where it says Town of Mayberry, you'll see farm sets that was later used for Mayberry RFD. That's where we saw Batman drive through Sam Jones's yard. That's the Sam Jones set. right there. Andy would live in the lower right hand corner just above the taller building, which would be the Rimshaw Haunted House. When the Gomer Pyle set was built, if it's in the place where the real McCoy's barn and house was, we should be able to see it from Wally's filling station. And we can. In this episode, Goober's Contest, which is in the color episodes, we are at Wally's filling station, looking basically a little to the right of where Gomer was standing in the other picture. But you can see a Quonset hut on the left-hand side of the screen. That is Gomer Pyle's Quonset hut. And that gate that you see in the distance there is actually the entry gate to the studio or to the backlot. That's actually an entry gate. There is an actual guard at that gate that they used in the filming of this scene right here. So let's take a closer look at the Mayberry we know, the 1965 view. I want you to note the church is not a facade. The multifaceted building is not a facade, but all of the other buildings are only facades. And so there were no interior shots able to be shot in those buildings. There was no interior to them. I want you to see a couple of things. Number one is that the back of Andy's house, which is clearly labeled Taylor House, you can see that it's open in the back, and you can see a big courtyard back there, a big open space. If you remember in the Andy Griffith Show, you saw an oval-shaped gate to the left of the courthouse. If you look in this photo, you see the courthouse, and if you look to the right of the courthouse across the street, there was this oval-shaped gate. It's there. We're seeing the back side of it. You could walk through that gate, walk all the way straight to Andy's house. It was a shortcut, really. The second thing I want you to note is that when Andy and Barney opened the doors of the courthouse on the 40 Acres lot, what they actually saw was not the interior we're used to seeing. What they actually saw was a riverboat set. See it in the screen there? You see the riverboat set? It is large. It extends from the courthouse all the way to the alley between the hotel and Foley's Market, which we have seen that alley in several episodes. But let me pull up for you a picture of that alley. This is from the Loaded Goat episode. Andy and Barney are looking for the Loaded Goat, Jimmy, and they stumble upon Otis, who is not yet stumbling, but comes out of up some steps. Otis, in this picture, is standing on the hotel side, and Andy and Barney are standing on the Foley's Market side, and there's a door in the back. And you can see through the door, you can clearly see the other end of that boat set. So now let's look at the northwest corner, 1965. In the northwest corner, we see the Stalag 13 set right there. And I point this out because I want you to see a couple of things. The berms that were built, the high berms that were built along the road to the right of your screen, was the border of Higuera Street in Culver City. It served two purposes, building those berms. One is that it hid the scenes from being seen from the street, what they were doing on the set. And secondly, it served as sort of a traffic sound barrier so that the traffic sounds didn't interrupt the filming. The berm in the center there, around the farmhouse facade, right behind Sam Jones's place there, that was to hide the Stalag 13 set from the Andy Griffith Show sets. So they put these big berms with rocks and trees and all kinds of things to hide sets from other sets. The other thing I want you to note is this road on the right. It's a perimeter road. It's a dirt road that they used in many scenes. I want you to notice that little house tucked to the right there. That little house was the bathroom facilities for the cast or for the crew. It was kind of hidden back out of the way. but we can see it in several episodes of the Andy Griffith Show. Here's an example. This is from Lawman Barney. You see Andy and Barney there. They've just run off the guys that were selling produce on the side of the road illegally. If you were to look to Barney's left, where his left elbow is pointing, that would be the driveway into Sam Jones's house. But I want to point out that as these guys are running down this dirt road, you can see to the right of them the roof of a little building. That's the bathroom facilities tucked back in that little alcove there. You can see the telephone poles that were down Higuera Street. Those are actually in Culver City, not on the back lot. They're along the street. I also want you to note that as they round this curve in this road and they go around that berm on the left, they will be entering Stalag 13. Here's another shot. You can see the building that is the bathroom facilities for the crew. In this picture, Mr. Foster from Foster's Furniture Polish. His car is broken down and he's flagging down Andy in the patrol car. This is where he broke down, right by Sam Jones's house across from the bathroom. But at least he had bathroom facilities. That's what I'm saying. So now let's take a zoomed in look at the residential street. So this is the residential street where Andy's house is located, Aunt Pitty Pat's house, which is the haunted house, Mayor Stoner's house, etc. And there were 5 of them along the right side of the street across from the church. So now we'll zoom out a little bit and we'll look at the facades, the house facades on the right-hand side as we're looking at it of the street. You can see house facade number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 being the old Rimshaw house. So let's back up from there since we already know where that is. The Taylor house, we already know where that is. House facade number 3 that you see down there is the smaller house that was right beside Andy's house. And it was used. It was in one episode, it's where Wally lived in Man in a Hurry. When they went and Wally said, "Watch your foot, I'm rocking forward." That's where he was, right there. It was the second location, I think the second location. They tried to sell the cannon at that house to a man who kicked the wheel of the cannon. Remember that? House facade number 2 that you can see there it was used many times in the series. It was where Emma Brand lived. It was her second house, Emma Brand's second house in Ellie Comes to Town. Ellie lived in house facade number 1 in that episode. So they lived right side by side. But it was also house facade number 2 was also Peggy McMillan's house. It was also Helen Crump's house. This is where they lived. And so Andy didn't really have far to go in reality from his house to their house. But again, the reality of the 40 Acres lot and the town of Mayberry were different. Now, house facade number 1 is where I already said Ellie lived, but it's also the home that was used for the Mendebride apartments where Barney lived. And it's interesting that in that episode where they tried to sell the cannon, that the cannon was located in that space between the Mendebride Park apartments and the next building over. That was a little grassy area, and that's where the cannon was located. Remember, Andy tried to sell it to Barney, and he said, "Think about it. It can sit in your front yard, and people will come by and look at it." And Barney said he didn't want a bunch of people gawking at a cannon in his front yard. But in reality, it was in Barney's future front yard because he lived in the Mendebride apartments. The Mendebride fountain was located right about here in front of the church, and the oldest oak tree in Mayberry was located right here. And that makes it kind of odd because Aunt B, when she left the ceremony around the oak tree, walked in this direction when she should have walked in this direction. Another inconsistency is that when Aunt B in Ellie Comes to Town, and Emma Brand was sick, and she was in her on her deathbed. Aunt Bee fixes some soup for her and takes it to the courthouse and asks Barney to deliver it to Emma Brand. In reality, Aunt Bee would have walked past Emma Brand's house to get to the courthouse, and then Barney would have had to walk back or drive back to Emma Brown's house. The reality of the 40 acres lot did not match the reality of Mayberry. So, what does it look like today? Today, it is office buildings, but they do have production, film production companies in there, and there is still some filming being done on what used to be the 40 acres lot. Here is what the 40 acres lot looks like today. Let me show you what it looks like today with an overlay of the town of Mayberry. Here it is. You can see the office buildings are all there now in this triangular shape. Again, we're hovering over the Baldwin Hills Scenic Overlook, and we're looking down at these office complexes and production studios when we would have been looking at Mayberry. There you have the reality of the 40 acres backlot. If you enjoyed this, if you learned anything from it, if you got anything to add to it, drop me an email at tagsrl55@gmail.com. I would be glad to talk to you. Drop me any information that you would like to learn, or any information you have that you might like me to learn, because we're all students of the Andy Griffith Show. Don't forget, please, to subscribe. I thank you.